Welcome to Spirits of Whiskey. We explore the wide world of whiskey through the many colorful personalities who make it, promote it, write about it, and more.
With each podcast, Kerry Moynihan, a certified bourbon steward and bartender, and yours truly, Philip Dobar, director of the Cocktail Collection, interview whiskey's most important names.
From high-profile makers, blenders, and ambassadors,
to out-of-the-way innovators and remote pioneers.
Join us as we discover the people and elements that give the water of life its spirit. It is Whiskey Wednesday, September 29th, 2021, and you're enjoying episode 53. Today on the show, we have live and in person Mr. Paul John, chairman of John Distilleries in India. Stay with us. Yeah! Hey guys, we're back, finally, after COVID-19. I'm Carrie.
I'm Philip.
I'm Louise. I'm the chef.
Chef Louise Leonard, as in Whiskey, A Chef's Journey. That chef.
Yes. We started shooting just before the pandemic lockdown, and now today, our very first day, you are catching us on set, and we would love to talk to you about how you can help get us from here to your TV set.
The thing is, we've run out of money. We mounted a pre-production campaign, which was very successful. Thank you very much for that. But now, we're back into production, and we need your support for this phase. You supported us the first go-round, or if you didn't, we welcome your support this time. The thing is, we want to take this show around the world, quite literally.
Quite literally.
And that takes money.
Yes.
So, won't you help us get this to market? You can visit whiskeyachefsjourney.com for all of the information you're going to need to help us realize this project.
Well, I think it's a cheers to that.
Cheers.
Our guest today on Spirits of Whiskey is Mr. Paul John, chairman of John Distilleries in Goa, India, maker of some of the world's finest single malt whiskies. Welcome to Spirits of Whiskey.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, welcome.
Great to have you with us. So,
Generally, we start each episode asking our guests about their whiskey journey. So tell us, how did you go from a young man in India to this big, huge, I mean, you're the biggest name in Indian whiskey that I know of. So how did you get from a wee little boy to this big whiskey guy?
When I left, after I finished my education, I was thinking of what to do, and then I decided to get into business, which was always something that I had in my mind, that I wanted to do business. And I got into the making of biscuits.
biscuits.
I bought a factory
like
in
British biscuits,
in
like
Bangalore.
cookies?
I mean, you could call it cookies also.
Okay.
But yeah, it had all the different types of biscuits. So I started that. In 2 years' time, I blew up all the money that my dad had given me to start my business. Had to wind it, shut down operations because, things didn't go well.
Dad, I spent it all on cookies.
Yeah. And, it was a disaster. But anyway, it was a good learning for me. I would say that experience taught me what the real world was. Anyway, to cut things short, 2 years down the road, sorted out all those issues that I had, cleared out all the debts that I had, or rather I would say settled all the issues that I had, and then I managed to get a license to manufacture alcohol. And the reason I managed to do that was that my father was in trading of alcohol.
Okay.
He had, the wholesale business, and he also had retail shops in a small area in India, in Karnataka, called Coorg. Where he still has about 23 retail shops, and he continues to run them even now. So that was my first thinking. So my dad's in manufacturing, so why not start manufacturing? And that's how I set out to start my production. Put up a plant in Bangalore. That must have been in the early 90s, 91, 92. And started...
You don't look old enough to have done that in the early 90s.
I'm doing the same math as you, Kerry. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I'm 55 now, so I started pretty early.
See, I was going to say you look 45
I'm
a day younger.
Yeah, okay, so...
I'm younger than both of them, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, very good.
Even though I may not look it.
Now, you studied general business in school?
Yeah, well, I did commerce, and then I did my law. So basically I did, business management. But more than that, I was interested because my dad was doing business, and at an early age, I would go with my dad to his, the businesses that he used to run. So, I had some interest in business, and I thought that was what I would like to do when I get older, and that's how I started focusing on that.
And where in India did you grow up?
I'm originally from a state called Kerala in South India, and then my dad moved to the neighboring state called Karnataka, and that's where I grew up. But in Bangalore is the headquarters of Karnataka, so I did my entire schooling over there, and in college and everything I studied in Bangalore.
Okay.
And
I think we should wait a second because we're getting a lot of sirens in here.
Yeah.
Okay, it is passed. We can
it is
continue.
fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Goa, how did you get to Goa?
How did you go? How did you go to Goa?
How'd you go to Goa? Former Portuguese colony.
I'll get to that. So, yeah, I started my factory in Bangalore, the first unit, and then started producing whiskey for the local market. India is a huge, whiskey drinking country, and Karnataka was one of the largest, whiskey consuming states. And I started producing brands for the local market, and I would say entry-level whiskeys. And for many years, we started producing those brands, and around in 1995, I started the brand called Original Choice Whiskey.
Okay.
That continued to grow and do very well, and that's still one of our bread and butter, I would call it. Sells about 15 million cases on a yearly basis. Each case is about 9 liters.
Wow.
So that's what gives us the money to be doing all these other things that we are still experimenting with.
Now, we're going to taste these.
Of course.
As we go through the interview.
Yes.
So the first one is
A PX finish single malt whiskey.
Oh, it smells
Matured in the Pedro Jimenez casks after the maturation of the bourbon casks
As
that
our
we have.
as our audience knows, sherry finished whiskeys are my favorite.
Oh, okay.
and
So I can't
I'm close behind you. Yes. Sherry bombs, bring them on.
Sherry is also one of my all-time favorites. So
Cilantro.
cheers. So basically this is a 46%. Again, most of my variants are non-chill filtered because we believe that chill filtration removes a lot of the fatty oils in the liquid, and so we don't suggest that.
Definitely feel the oils.
You lose that mouthfeel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is lovely.
Aged how long? Finished how long?
Aged for about between 6 to 8 years.
In ex-bourbon?
Ex-bourbon, and then finished for about a year or two in the PX casks.
XPS guys.
And what kind of bourbon casks are you allowed to say?
It's basically the once used bourbon casks from the US, and all our casks are imported from the US. And now that Sazerac is a part of the John Distilleries, we buy most of it from Sazerac's.
So Buffalo Trace is in the mix.
And all those things are what is coming now.
It's delicious.
So you introduced this brand in the 90s. Not this brand, but
No,
another.
95. Then so in the early 2000, I started traveling to in the US mainly. And I had a base over here, so I started drinking wine. So I started manufacturing wine in India. So we have a huge portfolio of wine, which caters to the whites and the reds, and some desert wine also under the Big Banyan series. And then after that, it was what next? And I started drinking single malts, and I loved the single malt. So I thought, why not? But it was still very new. I mean, didn't think that in India we would be able to produce, because we were given to understand that it's only in Scotland that you can produce good quality, single malt. So good quality Scotch can be only made over there. So I made a lot of trips to Scotland, visited a lot of the distilleries, took some samples from the streams and the rivers over there. And in fact, I even carried back some water samples from there, because I always thought that the water was something that would actually define the quality of the single malts in India. And after I did the results and the testing, I figured out that we have all the ingredients where we could produce if not equal, better quality stuff than in Scotland. And so we decided.
Better quality.
Ooh, fighting words.
Didn't see any reason as to why we could not, aspire for the best, I would say.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we set out, to put up the plant at around, I would say 2005, 6. Then I started manufacturing in around 2008, I would say.
Okay.
And then around 2012 is when we had the first batch of the 4-year matured single malt that came out. And we decided to market it in Europe first because I wanted, the people that really knew what single malts were to actually give the seal of approval. So we did our marketing over there and we started winning we took part in a lot of competitions, and then we started winning a lot of awards, which gave us a lot more encouragement. And we slowly started spreading, in Europe. And then, of course, we started spreading across the world. And then about 3 years ago, we launched in India also.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
Oh,
wait,
wow.
you weren't in India?
Yeah, we went to India, I would say, towards the end because, we needed the approval from the international market first before we would actually, get into the Indian market.
And is that your approval or the country's approval?
See, we've been a British colony for over 300 years, so we have a lot of British influence, and that notion is still there in the people, in the minds of the people, that if it's imported stuff, it's good stuff. If it's made in India, it can't be that good.
Right.
So we needed to prove ourselves that we are competing with international brands and being recognized as good quality stuff, which we did.
So it was strategic of you to establish yourself on the world stage
First.
before you'd be accepted at home.
Yes, and that's what we did, and I think
kind
to a
of
large
sad.
extent
It's
we achieved that.
and quite common.
Yeah.
I know,
You
but
know,
it's still sad.
It is sad. I know.
Well, did you at least have, like,
a prophet
if
is not
people came-
without honor except in his own country.
Yes. Did you have any tours and stuff at the distillery?
No, the tours just started, I would say, hardly about a year and a half
Oh, wow.
ago. I mean, the tours came even later on after even launching the product. So
Wow.
we
So
did not-
people in India really just had no
in
idea
fact,
that
people
you
did
were-
not know that we were, a producer making high-quality single malts until about 2-3 years ago.
Wow.
Now, were you also making a whiskey for the domestic market?
Not the single malts. We were making
Right.
whiskies of all the other variants for the domestic market, which continued, and we continued to grow, and we were doing
So
all that stuff.
that supported, that was your
That's-
cash flow.
Yes, that was the
And,
cash
and
flow.
what's the name of that brand?
I have one main brand which is called Original Choice Whiskey,
Okay.
Original choice.
which is I think it's I think the 5th largest selling brand, whiskey in the world today
Wow.
in terms of volume.
Wow.
And we sold 15
so you
million.
can get it here.
We don't export it to this country. We are exporting it to the Gulf countries,
Not
little
to
bit
this
to
country.
Africa, and
We don't get the good stuff.
Is
we get
it-
the great stuff.
Is it blended?
no,
Is it-
actually, see, in whiskey in India, most of the whiskey that is made for the general category is made from distilled molasses.
Okay.
So we produce alcohol, and then that is blended with the whiskey flavor, and caramel is added to make it whiskey and caramel, and so that's how the definition that you are allowed to sell in India, and that's what we were doing.
Right. India, I know, is the world's largest whiskey market.
But again, much of what is sold in India is actually cane spirit with a variety of modifiers added to the mix. Caramel, a bit of grain spirit, but it's largely cane spirit.
Yeah.
Right. Which we would look at and call, oh, well, that's rum.
That's another reason why we are not exporting that to most of the countries, because a lot of the countries have these laws where it has to be, made out of some grain, and, to call it whiskey, and we will not qualify under that category. So hence, in a lot of the countries, technically we may not be allowed to qualify as a whiskey.
Sure.
But having said that, I must admit that in the last few years, India has made a lot of progress towards manufacturing grain alcohol. The government also has been promoting molasses towards more for ethanol blending, and they have been encouraging distilleries to produce grain spirit. It could be corn, it could be paddy, rice, wheat. So there's a lot of distilleries that have come up recently that produce. So I would say now it's about 50% of the extra neutral alcohol that we call is the base material that we use, is sort of grain rather than molasses
Okay.
now, compared to in the earlier stages when it used to be 100% only molasses based.
Okay. All right. Now, there are other single malts, fine single malts made in India,
Yes.
correct? There's
Yes.
Amrut,
Yes,
there's Rampur.
yes.
So is it friendly competition?
I mean, I think there's a scope for, many more players. If you ask me, single malt is still at a very nascent stage, including in this country. I mean, I'm surprised, you go to one of the best restaurants and you'll find them having 3 or 4 bottles of single malts. So I think there's a lot of scope. I would encourage that, there are more producers that come out, but I would only hope that they all maintain standards and don't undercut on doing anything that does not define the quality for a single malt. But as long as that's done, I don't feel, I wouldn't call it a competition, more the merrier. And I mean, there is a lot of scope for people to taste different varieties of single malts, which is, I think, very good.
Well, look at Scotland, small country.
Lots of Scotch.
How many brands? How many distilleries?
Hundreds.
Exactly.
But
Right.
then the only difference
India?
is they were colonizing.
Second largest, second
No,
most
they,
populous.
they colonized the whole world, and at that time
Well,
it was
yes,
very
they
easy
did
to
that.
push the products into them. We are the reverse, we were colonized, so getting a product into a country is 10 times more a Herculean task for us than a British band going into a country that is being colonized by them. So that's the difference.
True.
Fair
true.
enough.
Although, to be extra fair, Scotland was taken over by the Brits too.
That's true.
So,
Shall we?
yes, number 2, yes,
Yes.
please.
Which is next?
So the next one would be the Oloroso.
Okay.
So again, this is another sherry, it's another
You're a man after
Oloroso
my own
finish.
heart.
I love
tell him
the
to do
sherry
all the
finish
sherries?
whiskies.
No,
No?
I didn't. I did not.
Thank you.
And you, have you room yet? Okay. Oh, I don't have room yet either.
Well, he's busy talking and I don't know what you're doing. that you
Don't talk
have
so
room.
much.
Well, no, keep talking, because otherwise no one's going to listen to our show.
So, yeah. So basically, this is, an Oloroso finish.
That's got a
Master
beautiful
distiller
nose.
Michael travels out the world to pick up the casks, and these are casks that are typically used for 40, 50 years, maturing these sherry finishes, and they have a lot of character in them.
Yes,
Yes,
these
they
are
do.
actual ex-sherry casks. A lot of the sherry cask product one sees in the market is acquainted with sherry, but it's not truly an ex-sherry cask. They're created, sherry passes through them, and then they're shipped to Scotland.
Now, how,
It's becoming very difficult to find sherry cask, especially I'm talking of the ones that have been used for the last 30 years and 40 years. It's extremely difficult now. So what's happening now is that, a lot of these casks are being made, sent to Spain to, mature the sherry in those casks, and then people get it back to do their finishes. So that's the new trend that is happening. I'm presuming probably that's what will have to happen going forward.
But these are ex-working casks.
We were actually fortunate enough to pick up, a lot of these ex casks, but I don't think we will get them anymore. So going forward, probably we may also have to resort to, using these casks that are.
so what you're
actually
saying
used.
is we need to buy up all the bottles we can right now.
Well, that's. We'll strive to continue to see how we can maintain the quality of what we are giving now, but going forward, it is definitely going to be a challenge.
So how many years was this? And was this only in sherry, or was this also in bourbon?
No. Typically, these are all finished in sherry cask. So we normally have between 5 to 6 years in once-use bourbon cask, and then we finish it between 1 to 2 years in a sherry cask.
Okay.
Depending on when Michael feels that it's the right time to take it out.
This might be too early to jump to this, but are you typically we save this sort of question for the end, but since we're talking about finishes, are you experimenting with port and Madeira and Marsala and
Yes, we are doing a lot of experiments. There's a whole section that we have in the factory, which I love doing, doing experimenting with a lot of stuff and as a result of those experiments is what you see, which you will see later on is the Paul John XO is a brandy.
brandy?
So, we go across the spectrum, from finishing single malts with casks to actually experimenting with a lot of other things also. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and whatever we feel has reached the right, maturation and fits the profile that we like, we will release. If not, we kill it.
Okay. So how many active expressions do you have on the market right now?
Probably around 12, I would say, if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken. I'm also losing count because, for example, every year during the Christmas time, we release a limited edition of a Christmas edition.
Right.
So those are all not counted as, expressions because in 2018 we had the first Christmas edition, and 2019 we had another. And each one is a different blend, different packaging, and it's just limited number of bottles only for that year. Once it's sold, it's gone.
Right.
So occasionally we come up with those kind of things also, special casks sometimes.
The one-offs, as they call them.
Yeah, the one-offs.
But yeah, on a standard base, I think we have that, the Nirvana Brilliance, edited bold, classic peated, and then we have the PX, Oloroso, EXO, and then Mithuna we have the Star Sign series, which was the first one was
Which we'll taste
Kanya, and
next.
then was Mithuna.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
What's your favorite?
I'm a non-peat fan, so I would prefer, as I said,
I go either
Oloroso
way.
is one of my most favorite stuff,
Okay.
and then of course Mithuna, absolutely love it. But yeah, my palate is more towards the non-peat, and I like more of the sweeter finish. So anything to do with that. 2018 Christmas edition was again one of my most favorite stuff that I actually
Did
really
you keep
love.
a couple bottles that you still have at home?
But by the time I realized that, the bottles were hard to get by. I do have some, I think, but I would have loved to have had more if I'd realized that this was something that.
Yes,
I
in
really
future,
liked.
you need to hold back a case.
So this expression that we're just having, how many years was it in bourbon and how many, or did we just ask that? I
Around
think I
6 years
just
in
asked
bourbon and again, and 2 years in the
that. Depending on,
the PX.
and is it the same base recipe as the first one that we had, or is it a different?
Yeah, the only difference is that that is an PX cask finish, and this is an Oloroso cask.
Same
So
juice.
Same juice,
Pretty
different.
much,
Otherwise.
pretty much,
Okay.
yeah, the same. Again, see, since we have a lot of, different, we have underground cellar, we have above the ground
Yeah,
cellar.
can you, Karai, who is your U.S. representative, told me about that once. Can you
Okay.
talk to us about that? You age some of it in a traditional rick house,
Right.
and some of it is subterranean.
Like
Yeah,
they do with the
we
wine?
also have below the ground, maturation. So that again, because of the Goa, it's a sea coast. So there's a lot of humidity. Monsoons are extremely, very active. So there's a lot of rain. So it gets sultry, and there's a lot of sun during summer, and all through the year Goa is very hot, and that's why we have so much of evaporation, so much of maturation that happens over the years, and that's why we are able to get close to a 20-year maturation in 6 years' time.
So how much angel share do you think you have?
We have roughly about 8 to 10% of evaporation on a yearly basis, and
I'm so sorry.
but then that's the flip side. But then the good side is, if you see, all our variants are no color, it's all 100% natural.
Yeah.
So the color that you're getting is all from the.
Okay, now
Right.
what is this one? What do we
This
have?
is Mituna. This is new.
This is
Yes?
Mithuna. This is a part of our this is one of the part of our Zodiac sign series. This is the second release of the Zodiac sign series, and incidentally, this has won some very good awards, and I think.
So what, okay, what is this, how do you, what's the recipe on this guy? What do you make? What is it finished in? What is it
This
aged in?
is actually
great.
aged in new casks. So unlike
Okay.
Virgin oak.
bourbon cask, it's virgin cask.
Okay.
For the first 6 years,
American oak?
American oak,
American oak.
and then matured in once used bourbon for another 2 years. Because if
Okay.
we mature it for too long, then it will get too much of the woodiness. So in 6 years, it was taken out, and then it was put into once used bourbon cask for another 2
And
years.
what is it called again? What is it?
Mithuna.
Mithuna for our listeners
It's
and
the
viewers.
It's the
Mituna.
Indian star sign for Gemini.
Gemini, okay. Are you gonna have an
So
Aquarius?
this is a two-faced.
Hopefully, if we find the blend that figures to the character of
Well,
whatever it
that's
is.
the water bearer. So I think that would be appropriate for the water of life.
Yeah, and
Too.
I'm an Aquarius, so I retain water. So
Hopefully,
I am also. Our birthdays are what, 2 days apart?
Yes.
Yes, no, 1.
I'm the seventh.
Yes, so 2 days. I'm the 5th.
Yeah, there we go.
And now everybody has our birthdays. But
Not the year. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I
So
don't know,
anyway,
you kind of whispered earlier, they
I
can
did.
figure it out.
Yes, I
so.
did. So this is Gemini, so it's two-faced.
Yes,
Does
that's
that
why-
mean you can't trust it, or does that mean that it has different qualities with each tasting?
it has different qualities of each tasting, and if you see the packaging also, the front side and it's two-faced.
All right.
It's
Very
two-faced.
good.
That's lovely. That's awesome. That's a beautiful box, actually.
It's
Hey,
two-faced.
Philip, open that. Is that one of those side opening, beautiful with the?
Yes,
Open
it
it.
is a glorifier. You open it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
That's fun.
Engineering.
Yeah, that's fun.
All right.
Yep. So that's.
Sometimes I wish I was a packaging person, because
Yeah.
I would come up with so many fun ways to package stuff.
You can
Cheers.
still get into
Sláinte
it.
vá.
You have the age.
Sláinte
to
vá.
do it.
Oh, wait. Oh, no,
So-
I have a,
Yeah. And ideally, these are all higher strength. Can you guess the strength of this? Guess. $1 million bet.
Are we talking proof or
Yeah,
ABV?
Proof.
Proof? I
See,
know, I
for
think I need
example,
more. I think I
our
need more to
brilliance
figure that
edited bold and our brilliance edited bold is 46%.
Right?
Okay,
It's
Our
definitely more than
flagship.
46, but it's not,
And-
it doesn't taste like a lot more. ¿Sabes?
I
Okay.
think that it is 57.
You have seen it.
Are you looking at the bottle?
No, but I've
No,
tasted
it's
this
cheap.
before.
Oh, is it because you're 57 that you're saying it's 57?
Oh, I don't know. Could be.
Okay, so
No,
yeah.
no, it really is. It's 57.
It's
57 and change,
It's
right?
58%.
Okay.
So almost cast strength, and you will never tell that it is cast strength. I mean, it goes down
It
so
does
well.
not
It does not drink
at
hot.
all.
No.
No. This is one of the most mildest things that I've tasted at that percent, at 57, at Philip's age. You know, we need to get one at my age. It's just past the 46, so, you know.
Okay.
But who does the 47? Nobody does the 47.
Oh, no, we could.
Is that a mosquito? I think
Right
that's
to
a
us.
mosquito.
Right to us, fans.
Is that a mosquito?
It is. It is
This
a
really,
mosquito.
this really, settle down and expresses itself if you leave it to breathe for about 10 minutes in the glass, between
okay.
10 to 20 minutes.
All right, fine, I'll put
Well,
it down.
while we're waiting, can we talk barley?
Yes.
Okay.
Where do you
The
get the
source.
barley? Where do you get it?
India
do you
grows
grow
a
it?
lot of barley. It's a very big beer drinking country, and in the northern parts between Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, I would say, we would extend the foothills of Himalayas to that part, but basically in that region over there. So a lot of barley is grown mainly for the beer, and it's the 6-row barley that we use compared to the 2-row
6-row,
barley that's
oh.
normally used.
Six
Okay.
row, that's why it's so good.
So
So
we,
that's a bit more expensive, is it not?
It is.
and we realized that it has got more husk, and as a result has more oils, and the oils are what gives it that flavor and that silky finish that you get after it. So I mean, we're happy with what we're using.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And cocktails, you said you have a cocktail program. You've got a bunch of things. Now, where would we find these cocktails that you...
These recipes, yeah.
Yes.
We have a lot of recipes on the web, and I think Corey will be happy to send you all those links.
Come in
on the
and wave
recipes
to the
that we
audience
have.
here.
Wave in front of the camera there.
Okay. Nice to have you. Thanks for showing your beautiful face on TV.
That is Karay Khan Özdemir.
Yeah, I would never be able to say his last name. It's like Aista. Aista, I'm glad you got married to Mr. Phillips.
Glad your name is Phillips now.
Yes.
Yes. Anyway.
Well, awesome.
Yeah.
Paul John, it has been such an honor to be able to not only meet you, but interview you in the same day that I got to meet you. And we really appreciate you being here and sharing your whiskeys and your rum and your
Brandy.
brandies. Jeez.
As always, a pleasure.
We
Thank
did
you for
discuss
having
rum.
me.
Yes, we did, but that's not what we had.
Right,
And I see
right.
the mosquito again. I'm gonna get him.
Very good. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you
for
so
having
much.
me over. It's
pleasure.
Thank you.
For show notes on today's podcast, please visit our website at spiritsofwhiskey.com. That's whiskey with an E.
We'll include links and supporting documents from today's stories in this episode's blog post.
As always, you'll see upcoming topics, a guest roster, and links to past shows.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time,
Sláinte.
Spirits of Whiskey is produced by First Reel Entertainment and the Center for Culinary Culture, home of the Cocktail Collection, and is available via Anchor, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and wherever fine podcasts are heard.